Good evening, my fellow Singaporean. Thank you for coming to the Workers' Party rally. I can tell you your support is amazing. And I can tell you your support is making somebody very nervous. In this general election, you have to ask yourself this question: who will fight for your future? When you have one party occupying 82 out of 84 seats in parliament, do you think the party will fight for you? When you have one party constantly changing the political playing field so that it can easily retain 82 seats in parliament through the GRC system and the redrawing of the electoral boundary, you know whose future the party is trying to protect. Do you think this party will listen to you? Before a single vote is cast, some new PAP MP can even tell you the location of their Meet the People session. Before you and I even cast our vote, the ruling party has already told you that there are potential ministers and fourth generation leaders among its new batch of candidates. My fellow Singaporean, if a political party future is so secure, do you think it will fight for you? Do you think your views matter? The hard truth is, if a political party doesn't need to fight for its own future, it will not fight for yours. With any party with 82 out of 84 seats in parliament will not fight for your future. It will define your future. It will tell you where to stay. It will tell you how many kids you should have. It should tell you how much market subsidy you deserve for your HDB. It will define how much you can take out your CPF and when you can take out your CPF. That is the hard truth. With an overwhelming majority in parliament, the ruling party does not even need to account to you that there are almost 2 million PRs and foreigners in Singapore today. With 82 out of 84 seats in the last parliament, the PAP does not even need to apologize or take accountability. It does not even need to provide satisfactory answers on issues about reserves, investment losses, embarrassing escape, overspending, and even the once in every 50-year flood that came again and again. When Mat Selamat escaped, the minister also escaped from accountability. With an overwhelming majority in parliament, the PAP can even define the type and number of opposition voices you have in the next parliament. The PAP says you should have NCMP as your voice. The NCMP seat is so harmless to the ruling party that it's willing to give you up to 9 seats guaranteed. Imagine if there are only 9 candidates, opposition candidates in this election. They don't need to put up a single poster to become NCMP. They don't need to put up a manifesto or even hold a single day of rally. They will all become NCMPs. So is the PAP giving you a good deal? So vote Workers' Party into the parliament. For 46 years, the PAP has ruled Singapore totally unchallenged, and yet we cannot afford to retire. For 46 years, the PAP has ruled Singapore unchallenged, and yet our children are finding it hard to afford public housing. For 46 long years, the PAP government has ruled Singapore unchallenged, and yet our tiny island could become so overcrowded in such a short span of time that the level of comfort of many of our public service is slowly becoming unbearable. The PAP government doesn't even care much about if the trains and the buses are packed like sardines. It is not even bothered if your children are stretched to the limit by foreign talents in the schools and universities. In a speech in February last year, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew said, and I quote, "Between the two, growth as against no growth, I have no doubt we have made the right decision. Growth, whatever the inconveniences or competition of space, buses, MRTs, even schools, but we will always give preference to our own citizens. Are you comforted with that last statement that the PAP will always give preference to citizens? Do you feel special? Just 5 years ago, Singaporeans and PR pay about the same school fees in most cases. Last year, Singaporeans pay only $3.50 less a month than PRs in our primary school and $1 less in our secondary school. Do you feel special? Just over a year ago, Singaporeans pay only 10% less than PRs in our public hospital. Do you feel special? The government has promised to sharpen the distinction between Singaporeans and PRs beginning 2009. Before that, the distinction between Singaporeans and PR were even harder to spot. The hard truth is Singaporeans are not special unless election is near. And how special do Singaporeans feel when all the government did was to make PR pay more and not Singaporeans pay less? Instead of giving us a little more subsidy, they just raised the fee for PR. Do you feel special knowing you are still paying the same amount for education and healthcare? One thing for sure, they have not made me feel any special, but they made the PRs feel really lousy. For 46 years, the PAP government has ruled Singapore unchallenged, and yet it could not anticipate the surge of immigrants in the last 10 years. My fellow Singaporean, we must hold the ruling party accountable. Just a few weeks ago, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong said that by allowing in a controlled number of foreign workers, far from disadvantaging our own people, we have created more good jobs for Singaporeans and more opportunity in our economy. The word he used is control. Go back to this September last year. Mr. Goh Chok Tong said in a Straits Times article, he said the surge of immigrants in 2007 and 2009 caught the government by surprise. If the number of immigrants was controlled, how could one be caught by surprise? Mr. Goh was further quoted to have acknowledged that the National Development Ministry did not provide for the sudden surge in its housing plan. How could a party with 82 out of 84 MPs not plan for the sudden surge of immigrants in its housing plan? In 1990, Singaporeans formed 86% of the population. In 2010, we are only 64%. It was reported in the Straits Times that if you count locally born Singaporeans, we make up only 57% of the population. If you give the PAP another strong mandate in this election, we will surely become a minority in our own population. The Workers' Party is not anti-immigrant. However, the reason for admitting foreigners into our country should be to enhance the quality of life for Singaporeans, not to depress our salary and certainly not to take our jobs away. And which country in the world had to introduce measures to cool down its public housing market? Public housing is supposed to be affordable, but the government had to introduce measures to cool it down. You need a first world parliament to bring public housing back to its roots, which is to provide affordable roof for you and your children. When buses and trains are bursting at the seam, there has to be accountability. When hospital beds run out of Class C beds, there has to be accountability. When alleged terrorists ran out, limped out actually, our security, high security facility, there has to be accountability. We need a first world parliament to demand accountability from the ruling party. Your vote will signal your stand against the out-of-control immigration policy. Your vote will signal your distaste for the high ministerial salaries. By now, most of you have known that the minister received 8 months of bonus last year. You know how much that came up to? just for political appointment alone, all the ministers of states, and parliamentary secretary, etc., receive an extra $25 million in salary compared to 2009. The PAP government has explained the rationale for high ministerial salary many times. It was extensively debated in Parliament, but unfortunately, all the PAP MPs can never vote against it. But now you can. Your vote will signal your rejection of the high salary. Your vote will signal your frustration with a government that's quite deaf to criticism. Most of all, your vote will signal that you want to change, and you want to change now. Without a first world parliament, the ruling party will never know your frustration. It will never understand your anxiety and fear about the future. As I've explained earlier, with the ruling party in total control, it will not need to fight for your future. It will define your future. Even if the PAP were to slow down the intake of foreigners to a crawl, our lives have already been changed. Even if they were going to impose the strictest criteria for granting citizenship and permanent residence, from now, the value of our citizenship has already been diluted. More accountability must be implemented in the new parliament, and the way to achieve it is to have fewer PAP MPs. The PAP will not change unless you, the voter, change them. Send the Workers' Party into Parliament for Hougang, Sengkang West, Punggol East, Joo Chiat, Nee Soon, Aljunied, Moulmein Garang, East Coast. The Workers' Party is a rational, responsible and respectable party. We have on stage tonight Singaporeans who are passionate and committed to work for you and work with you to make Singapore a better place for all. My name is Png Eng Huat. I'm one of the candidates for East Coast GRC. We are ready to begin the process of building a first world parliament. Do the right thing. Vote Workers' Party towards a first world parliament.